right. Well, hi, everyone. I am Janelle Molony, and I am the author-editor of Emigrant Tales of the Platte River Raids. And first off, I just want to thank you all for contributing to that story and for helping me to visualize and develop the story of Jesse Shoemaker, and not just him, but the whole family contribution to Hall and Merrick counties in Nebraska, and to get that story to be recognized as important. I will go ahead and say for everyone that I'm not a relative of the Shoemaker family at all. And I have no personal connection other than my interest in my own family's Overland California Trail adventure. And I was pulling on all those threads to say, who are these people that my third great grandmother, Sarah Rousseau, was meeting or hearing about? Mr. Shoemaker, who I don't officially know who that is, but Mr. Shoemaker is in her diary. And I feel like that's important enough to her, for her to record and remember that he was there. And George Foreman recorded seeing Mr. Shoemaker and traveled with him on purpose. And I feel like that, again, is important to note. And so I'm fascinated by the Shoemaker history and what they were doing in Nebraska, because of how it gets couched into this bigger experience of immigrants on the trail in 1864. So thank you for coming alongside me in that journey. So with that, I'd like everyone to please introduce yourself and tell me how you're connected to the Shoemaker family. And if we want to make it simple, we can say how you're connected to Jesse.
Jesse is my second great-grandfather. I'm descended from his son, Alec. And Alec came to Canada with his son, Wilbur. And Wilbur was my grandfather.
Okay, cool. Ryan, how are you related to Jesse Shoemaker?
He is my third generation great-grandfather. And like Deb, with Wilbur, I'm a descendant through that lineage as well.
Michelle?
He is also my third generation great-grandfather, but I'm through Fred, who is Wilbur's brother. So it goes Jesse, Alex, and then Fred, my grandmother, Mabel, my mom, and then me. So
Wilbur and Fred are both sons of Alex?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Oh, okay. And Kathy, how are you related to Jesse Shoemaker?
Jesse Shoemaker is my third generation great-grandfather, and I descend through his daughter's line, Eliza Jane Shoemaker.
What made you interested or feel comfortable getting involved in the Platte River Raids project?
I just feel that history needs to be talked about. And the thought that I didn't know much about Daniel, who was in your book. And that kind of opened it up for me and what he did. And he was very similar to Alex. They did kind of the same things. They hauled all over the states and everything. And I just feel that history needs to be talked about. And I love to share what I know.
A lot of people have private trees. I've always made everything public. I've helped a lot of people. I share every photo I can get, even for other people's families. I've tried to help people, send them books on their families, get them to do trees. And I've known people who just will not share. I just think it's the opposite. In order to keep it alive, you have to tell as many people as possible. And then hopefully everyone will dig into their personal treasure troves and add pieces of the puzzle, which is, to me, the whole purpose of it. So
there's definitely something to that. And I think I can relate to that excitement as I was reaching out to folks and conveying, hey, I think this is bigger than, like, my gut reaction says it's big. I think we're onto something, but like, I don't know. Are you willing to find out with me? And for those who said yes, obviously we now are reaping the benefits of this. This is incredible. But yeah, there's something like our family history is not just ours. You know, we impact others around us, and it shows. So I hope that more people will take this opportunity to put more out there and make it public, like what you're doing, and share.
For me, I just facilitated between Nebraska and our true historian in our family. So for myself, it was more about learning as a group versus sharing. So I have a unique perspective on it as I'm just more getting into it. So it's a little different in that aspect for me.
Love
And your
it.
story, sorry to just add one thing, has really actually helped bridge that gap from some guy. They were very wary of me out of the blue, popping into their history and wanting to know, like they just didn't want to share anything, like you say it can be.
Yeah.
So this really actually legitimized us to them. For me.
Yeah, I was excited though. I was like, this is super cool that she's writing this story. And, you know, I was thrilled to be a part of it.
Why does making your family history public, even if we don't have all of the pieces, why does it matter?
I love US history. And I love putting my family into context of US history. Well, getting multiple points of views on a story, I think, is really important because, as they say, if you have, 20 witnesses to something, you're going to have 20 different stories. And so I think any version of the story you put out there, it adds another layer to the history of that.
Exactly what I would say as well.
Yeah.
Sparks more versions, or more people get to kind of dive into a subject. You're developing more connections, and hopefully it leads to more insight. And yeah, just exactly what Kathy had to say.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say I never did like American history until I did genealogy. I always thought it was a little boring. And now, oh my gosh, I spent a year doing a deep dive on the Civil War, and I know it just made it so much more interesting to me. So I know the generals, I know the battles, I know exactly where they went, and it's just made it interesting to me for the first time. And I just think it's really important to know history. You should know where you come from. It changes everything I see, movies, whatever. I have a context, and I feel like there's always a connection somehow between all the different families we're a part of.
Family history actually is US history.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
None of these stories truly are isolated. And if we treat them as isolated cases, we just don't understand. We can't grasp the gravity of that relationship being a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's also important to bring up Daniel, the mystery man of the hour.
In the case of Daniel, he was married, divorced, had one child, and child died. I'm in a writing group with my genealogy club, and one of the things all of us want to do is the ones that didn't have any family or never married, they're the ones that are forgotten. And in this case, Daniel's in this book and he is not forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
That's important to me.
Yeah, because otherwise, and I guess I'm not the right person to define this, but from what I know, and I'll tell you, I looked really, really hard for 2 years, he disappears. Granted, if he's running, I think it was a load of leather and something. I can't remember the other thing he had, but I can look it up. But he's running this up to deliver it somewhere. So he's not going to show up on a census or a city directory because he doesn't live there. He's going to come back. He's alive because he leaves a note saying, I was attacked and I lost this many horses, but he didn't stick around. So he had enough, or found a friend who had enough horses left to move him along, because by the time other people saw the note he left, he wasn't there. So I did pull it up. The mention from George Foreman says that this old bachelor shoemaker had leather and food and only a 1-yoke wagon. So he only has 2 oxen or horses pulling, but yet he also has a herd of at least 28 horses. So he's obviously not traveling alone, because if he's driving the wagon, who's managing the horses? So he has a team. where is he going? If all he has is leather and food, he's supplying somebody somewhere. Where else were they doing business?
I don't know if this is where they were doing business, but I have a newspaper article where they went about Jesse and a team of men went about 100 miles north of Grand Island to look for minerals and coal and things like that. And it described preparations of shaving their head and taking photos and distributing them.
What? Why are they shaving their head?
To make their scalps less valuable.
Smart.
Wait, how do you know that? Was that what? Is that the thing?
Yeah, so it actually says in the article, they intend prospecting for mineral and coal while gone. The boys had their hair cut short, distributed photographs among their friends, and now defy the Indians.
Please share that article with me.
Yes,
I would love to see it.
Okay, yeah, it's in the Grand Island Times. Came across it in newspaper.com. There's a lot of articles in there about Jesse, and 27th August 1873. And it's just a sign of the times. He was going out prospecting and taking precautions.
You never hear one thing that I feel like people don't talk enough about the wives. At least often it's the men, the men, the men. I'm often trying to like bring the women back to life because they just you don't hear about them as much.
Well, I know Daniel was divorced and I don't have the divorce record. I've looked and looked and looked. I was wondering if any of you had like the actual like record.
No.
No.
How would that have been done other than going back to the priest? You'd probably have to have an explanation unless there was no conversation like that, unless it was you go your way, I go mine. And
wondered with him being like a teamster and driving, was he just always gone and that was too much?
it could be.
Quite often people just split up. It never was a divorce or anything legal, and they either changed their names or just moved away or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And I don't understand why his daughter died other than getting sick, but what if there had been something more long-term and he's not around to help? And
even losing a child together could
Yeah.
drive two people apart.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Sorry, I don't have a real answer for you on that, but that'd be curious. And maybe after all of that, he got a hair and he was like, all right, whatever, I'm just going to go full-time on the road. And maybe there was some kind of disconnect or dissociation from that part of the world. I don't know.
Yeah. That's a theory.
Before the Platte River Raids, Jesse had really established quite a mecca in not just his own sources of entertainment and resupply and mercantiles and horse provisions, but his brother-in-law also was partnering that was the E.A. Healy or Headley, something
Hurley.
like
Hurley.
E.D. Hurley?
Yeah.
So he's involved. The whole family's getting involved. Brothers are now opening establishments, and all the money's just going to one family, basically, which is really cool. So they're gleaning and benefiting from all the people going west. And then after the raids, there's this huge movement back east. They're turning Chapman into a ghost town, but the Shoemakers don't leave. They don't evacuate because they have everything to gain, because everyone that went west supplied with them, and they're going to need a resupply because they lost stock and they lost supplies, and they're going to, the double dipping. What do you think about that?
Very
smart people.
I know, that's what I said. Entrepreneurial.
Capitalism.
Yeah.
I think they had to be incredibly brave and incredibly strong.
Mm-hmm. What if, as everyone was expecting, Indian troubles continued their way. I mean, I know there was a spillover effect into the Kearney area, but to my knowledge, there was no spillover effect towards Grand Island and Hall County, Merrick County. I think there was a division there, probably because the Indians that were involved in the Platte River Raids had nothing to do with anything that far east. That's my guess, not official, it's a guess. But yeah, they kind of lucked out to just stay put.
I wonder what kind of discussions in the family and with the spouses went on, because there may have been some people who are like, we just want to go back where we're safe and comfortable, but yet they did stay and they toughed it out and then continued going to places westward that were still new territory and helped found new counties and places northward and westward. Like they weren't done at Grand Island.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of resilience there for sure. Have you found anything, like Michelle's finding all these really cool stories? Has anyone else found a cool story that has surprised them or added to the intrigue?
One story that I came across through Judy's side and Art's side that kind of also might coincide with what Michelle was talking about, why they left. In coinciding with the drought, they had a harsh winter at Grand Island where they had all the cattle, and it killed the entire herd. They couldn't get in there for about 10 days.
Oh.
So it took a lot of their livelihood and everything that they had built and wiped it out in one fellow swoop. And apparently how many cattle were there created such a stench that it pretty much anyone in the vicinity had to vacate the entire area.
Wow.
Was that on Shoemaker Island?
At Shoemaker Island and just outside of Grand Island. Like I drove there, it's 20 minutes away, but yeah, it's not too far out of town. Yeah.
That'd have been maybe, I know that people would drop their cattle off at Shoemaker Island for him to take other places. So was that just his cattle, or was that?
My interpretation is it was a little bit of everybody's. So everything that they were going to ferry. So I think it was lost all around, and that was a major attribution to why they just, we were gone. Yeah.
Again, I just want to thank you all for joining in the conversation, and not just, I don't mean today's conversation, but the bigger conversation of Shoemaker history in the past and how we have found ourselves connected, how important it is to look into and ask, what about the women? I'm just grateful that I had a way to get other people interested in what might be in their family tree.
Yes. Well, you're welcome. And thank you for, connecting
Yes.
us.
And doing all the research you did, that was helpful.
Yeah.
A lot of new information.
One day, maybe, someone will go above and beyond and they will pinpoint Daniel's story. And maybe they'll tell me I'm wrong and it wasn't Daniel, it was one of the other kids, or I don't know. I'm open to it. But maybe someone someday will find that answer, and that would be really satisfying. I'd love to know. And I'm not too prideful to say, oh, I was wrong. Oh, okay. Tell me more.
I'm
correct.
sure we'll keep digging.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Nice
Bye.
to see everybody.